Okay, thank you, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Brian. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate that. And hasn't this been a great conference? I mean, so many wonderful experts in so many different areas. It's just been wonderful to just be here and absorb all that's going on. We're going to be talking about something I think is very practical if you're a caregiver. You know, adjusting to any challenges is a difficult thing to do, isn't it? Amen? Challenges are difficult. And especially when the challenge is physically and emotionally draining. An example of that might be a life-altering diagnosis. Automatically shifts your attention on the problems and the issues of the person needing the care. And often the caregiver is the one whose needs are often overlooked at that point, and or at best temporarily put aside, and understandably to focus on the person who has the greatest need. Unfortunately, we just don't always know whether this care that we're going to be given is for a season or for a lifetime.
And sometimes by the time we figure out what God has presented us with, we are already well into caregiving. And so we just are doing what we do naturally, and we love our child or whoever we're caring for, our parent or sibling or whatever. And pretty soon we're just thinking things are going pretty smoothly and life is just carrying on the way that it should be. There was a Walgreens ad that said, and I think it puts it best, if only caregivers had caregivers. Yes, caregivers who are supportive, sensitive, caring, available, loving, and tired.
That's right. You know, because caregiving can be and often is a full-time job, we need to understand that although great satisfaction can come from caring for our loved ones, some outcomes can put the caregiver at risk as well. And it's sort of like the tension that we put on something that's elastic. We can handle tension and frustration for a long time, but eventually something has to give. And which brings me to the issue of stress. Anyone have stress in here? Anybody? All right, thank you. I see those hands. I see those two hands. Thank you, sir. Very good. You know, stress by definition involves feeling responsible for what we cannot control and putting pressure or strain on something in some circumstances. And stress sometimes can be actually beneficial. For example, when you're preparing for college exams or planning for a wonderful wedding, those activities can make us alive and make us excited. On the other hand, there are stresses that sometimes we have to deal with, difficult in-laws. Okay, nobody raised it. Don't put your hand up, sir. Thank you. Money problems, divorce, trying to accomplish too much in a day. Now, sometimes we just get rolling as caregivers, don't we? And we just don't know that whatever we're doing here becomes way too much, and that good stress becomes bad stress. And it's much like driving on the highway without even realizing it. This is a personal confession on my part. You can be driving like 60 miles an hour, then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're at 80 miles an hour, and you don't realize you're at 80 until you see that police car up ahead on the street. And you may be cruising in life the same way. You're at 80 miles an hour when suddenly we need and realize we better slow down. And just as we grew accustomed to driving that highway at a high speed, sometimes we need to adjust to a cruising lifestyle that's a little bit more healthy. But wherever we're at, we begin to feel comfortable at whatever speed you're running at. But at some point, we need to realize that we're going to run out of gas.
And I think sometimes, too, we are going at such a fast speed, we realize we can't slow down, or we feel like we don't even know where we're headed, and we just need to stop. And sometimes something stops us. And so many drive the road to weary without even realizing where they're headed. And sometimes we find ourselves there, But we'll have those stressors. Joe just mentioned stress. We have those stressors like protecting the person that we care for, the many choices that we have to make. Sometimes it's a life-threatening procedure or surgeries, financial burdens, guilt, dealing with perceptions that others have of our lives and situation, disagreements and treatments. Sometimes, you have different things that you're looking at, wondering which one is the best one to make, so you have these differences. They're not all bad differences, they're just conversational differences. Therapists and teachers, and just the pressure really adds up. And sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves, and then sometimes we actually let others put the stress on us, and we don't take a moment to stop. So what we want to do is just share a little bit about our past year, some things that have happened with us that brought us to the title that we want to share with you today, When the Caregiver is Out of Commission. And you should have, hopefully, a handout like this with a QR code that can get you to reach us. If you don't have one, raise your hand and someone will get one to you. But you know, this past year, we had a number of things happening. Joe, last year at this time, had been diagnosed with acute urinary retention, was self-catheterizing himself for 5 months, which really kind of put us at home. It's not something you can easily do out and about. And he had to do that while his bladder and kidney was repairing itself before he could have surgery. And just in enough time for that to be done and over with, I decided to take my turn and went to the hospital by ambulance because I had injured my back. I've had injuries on my back for years and years and reoccurring problems, but this one was pretty bad, and I couldn't get out of bed, so I went to the hospital, got the medicines I need, the care I needed, and they asked, you know, how I felt about going home right then, and it was kind of late, and I said I'd kind of like to stay one night because I'm just not confident just yet in how I feel. The next morning, Joe was to pick me up from the hospital, being discharged from the hospital, and as I was getting ready in the bathroom, I was all of a sudden very out of breath. And I knew that while we were walking 4 miles a day, this was out of breath differently than walking. And so I thought, you know, here you are, you're in the hospital, don't walk to the bed, call for someone. So I called for the nurse, she came in, got me quickly in bed, and I had really kind of a little God story. Someone that I knew actually took my hand and said, I will take care of you, and everything is under control, but there's going to be about 10 people in this room very shortly, and don't worry, everything's under control. Meanwhile, she called Joe, thinking he's going to come pick me up, only to realize that I was having some problems. What had happened was I had multiple pulmonary emboli in all 5 lobes, sprayed like a shower, they sometimes call it that, and they were all blood clots, large, small, too many to count, is what the nurse said. I was immediately put on blood thinners, which recognized and showed that I was having internal bleeding. They did some tests. I had a handful of esophageal ulcers, which I had no indication of any of these things prior to this. My blood pressure was 66/47. Blood count was around 6. My breathing was very rapid, and my oxygen was very low. So, you know, I had no idea, but this nurse had said to me, don't worry, so I didn't. And I really didn't know what was going on. But what I learned was after some blood transfusions and even a blood clot in my leg a little bit later on through the week, in this week in ICU, I realized how tired I was and how weak I was and that I needed some help. And so what we're about to share with you are some things. We often share how to help the caregiver, but this time we needed help not just for the help of Joey, but the help of me because I was out of commission. And so the first point on your paper, for those who are outsiders, and we want to encourage you, by the way, feel free to take this paper, make copies, give it to friends, give it to your church. Maybe it will help someone to think a little bit differently about how they can help. So in this case, you know, Joe was pretty much on for Joey, and I was pretty much on for getting some rest, which is not my normal mode of operation. But one of the things that I really thought was very helpful was that people were offering within their availabilities and within their capabilities. And I was appreciative of that because then you know people really want to help because they're able to help in the ways that they're offering. So one of the things I would mention is to say, whether it's to the spouse of whoever needs the help at the time, instead of saying, you know, if you ever need help cutting your grass, let me know, to say, hey, what day would be good for me to come and cut your grass? Like, make it specific. Or I'm available to take you to a doctor's appointment this week on Tuesday if you have any, but if you have a different day, let me know. If I'm available, I would love to take you. Or just even the idea that, and I'm one of them, I really hate to ask because I prefer to be the giver. I love making meals for people. I enjoy that immensely. And having that done for me was really hard, but I was able to see within this week, and I'll share in just a little bit, how much it did help me.
Yeah, absolutely. The next entry there says, repeat your help as able. As Cindy said, she is one of the most generous persons I know. I mean, she loves to give, and she gives, and she gives, and she gives, and she has a difficult time receiving help. And but I did make it clear to her that if someone comes along and offers to help us, I'm going to say yes, and don't argue with me, right? We're trying to build oneness in our marriage relationship at this point, right? So repeat your help as able. What that means is one and done is a nice thing, but if you can cook more than one meal, or cut the grass more, or help around the house, that's amazing. That's just amazing. We really greatly appreciated that, and sometimes it is for a long haul for the caregiver, and the caregiver usually, in my opinion, is a hero, taking care of someone with special needs, but now the caregiver needs a hero.
Yes, for sure. Excuse me. One of the things I would recommend is to take meals in disposable containers. I always try to do that when I cook a meal for somebody, and I use the no return policy, and that is you have nothing to return to me. No dish, no pot, no pan, nothing. This is everything for you, and hopefully the way I've presented it and the way some people did for me, everything can be tossed out and thrown. Put your recyclable hat someplace else and just make it easy for them. What I've tried to do, and what some people did for us, was either it was in a foil container, it had easy to just throw away, and then also providing maybe paper plates or bowls or plasticware that all you had to do was heat up what you're eating, throw everything else away, and that just made it so nice. It's ease for the patient, it's also ease for the family, and when you're doing that, if you can also, think about throwing in a breakfast or something, that makes it easy for them too to think, oh, tomorrow I don't even have to think, I can have sort of a muffin or something that is ready for me the next day.
Yeah, which follows the next entry is bring a large meal for visitors too. We had one dear friend that brought this large ham. Was it like half a pig, or what was it?
It's a half a ham.
Half a ham. It was huge. It was huge. Just a lot of food. And there was a lot of potato salad there, and desserts and buns. And I thought, what are we going to do with all this food? And but we were so appreciative of that, because sure enough, here comes the family, the kids, and the grandkids, and we were able to feed them.
Yes, it was so nice to be able to just pull it out of the refrigerator and say, make a sandwich.
Right.
And when this friend brought it over, we were so thankful for it, but we were so shocked at how much food there was. And all I could think about was wasting it, and I didn't want to waste it. I know we could have frozen some of it and everything, but I will now think to do this for other people because it was so very helpful.
Right.
And then just the idea of having one person who would arrange the meals. At one point we had 2 different people, and so we had a little bit more food than we needed. We kind of kept in touch with both people so that we didn't have too much, but then with that thought in mind, it was good that if there was a little extra food to kind of take a lay of the land and say, well, this is easily frozen, let's freeze that. So while I appreciated and accepted meals for 10 days, we really had probably another 7 days of frozen meals. And it's only 3 of us, we don't eat that much, so it was really appreciated when people brought things, but it was nice then too when we had sort of one person really arranging things, and that was really helpful.
Yeah. And that really just follows with the next entry there, just bring a meal, freezer ready. And this is perfect for us guys, right? I survived in dental school because my mom brought food, and I just stuffed it in the freezer, and I survived that way.
And you said you cooked.
And I said I cooked. I got myself through dental school that way.
Yeah, right.
But the idea here is that the more you can, whatever you make sure it's kind of freezer ready. And we had a dear friend who made some homemade chicken soup. It was wonderful. Made 6 extra packets we can put in the freezer.
Yeah, it was so nice.
Yeah.
She brought it all ready to go in plastic containers.
Right.
And just said, if you don't eat this today or tomorrow, freeze it. And that's what we did, and we had it for a while later. And then just the idea to be generous in whatever you do. One of the things I try to do if I can do a meal for someone is to throw in a breakfast or maybe like a hoagie sandwich for lunch tomorrow or something. It doesn't even have to be homemade and hard and difficult and everything. But the other thing is too, when people are bringing meals, sometimes they tend to bring a lot of casseroles, which we love. But if you get a lot of pasta that's like spaghetti, by the end of 4 or 5 days, you might be tired of it. You might want to be generous and ask the person that you're giving to, what do you have a taste for? Or what's your favorite? And maybe like a pot roast instead of a pasta. And that can always be kind of helpful too.
Very good. And if you plan on visiting, I know you all want to visit this person, but you want to just keep it short, sweet, and simple. And I would say no more than 20 to 30 minutes or less when you go to visit this person. After I had a major surgery at the Cleveland Clinic last year, the next day, and Cindi didn't plan it this way, but the next day she had her 50th high school reunion meeting at her home. And so I showed up, and I'm trying to keep a smiley face up and trying to engage with the people who were there. But finally, I guess my face gave it away, and the guy sitting next to me said, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I think I'm crashing at this point." And of course, that cleared out the place in 5 minutes. But the point here is that you just want to go, if you want to make a visit, go ahead, just keep it short.
Yes. One person that came to visit me, she set her alarm clock and said, "I will stay no longer than 20 minutes." And I thought that was very generous of her to do that.
Nice.
And then to not bring children. While I was so grateful to see my grandchildren, they're active and they're busy, but my daughter keeps them, tamed enough that for me, who was resting and needing not a lot of commotion, I was okay with that. But we have had in the past times where people have brought children when we've been recovering from something, and it's hard sometimes because you just, it's like another place that you have to put your thinking, and it's just better to be calm and to be quiet.
Yeah, and that goes along with don't call the patient. You can text or you can email that patient, but don't make their phone ring. Keep that message very simple, something like, "I'm thinking of you, praying for you. I hope we can talk soon. Call when you feel up to it. I'd love to hear your voice," and done. That's it.
Yes.
When they are ready, when they feel capable of doing that, they'll call you.
I know one thing when I was in the hospital, while I'm always very happy to talk with people, meet with people, and connect with people, I just didn't have it in me to do it. And so it was very helpful to not have that on my mind, like I have to answer this person, I have to keep being in touch with them. It gives you freedom to rest. So I just want to end with this one thought, and that is, someone like me who has a lot of energy generally, and I'm excited to be with people, and I even met a number of people in the hospital that I knew, and I was like ready to have a party, like, oh, this could be fun, I'm knowing all these people. But the hard thing is you don't know sometimes how much it takes out of you. And so I was so grateful for him saying, if anyone offers us a meal, we're going to say yes. The first week home, so not the hospital week, but the first week home, I slept 12 hours a night and had 2 2-hour rests in the day. The second week, I had 10 hours of sleep and 2 1-hour naps in the day. The third week, I kind of felt like I was a little back to normal in terms of a normal night's sleep and maybe just a rest during the day. But you know what? Had I not seen that physically on myself, I would not have recognized it. And I know my personality, I would have just said, I think I feel up to like making a dinner. If you do breakfast and lunch, I can make a dinner. And the problem with that is you don't realize how much rest you need. I would never have realized how much rest I needed. And so I'm most grateful for all of these things that we just shared with you were provided for us in our time of need. So just in ending, to just share Colossians 3:17, and whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. Thank you.